Hello, and welcome to your automatic negative thoughts or ants tutorial. Okay, ants, automatic negative thoughts. So if our negative core belief is like the nest, it's like the nest in our subconscious, and then the automatic negative thoughts are the ants that live in there and dig the little trenches that come out to reinforce that negative core belief. Because remember, the negative core belief needs to find all the data in your experience that proves that exists and that it's right. See, I am unlovable, or nothing ever works out for me. And it sends, and the ants go out and they find the data, and they're the way by which we interpret the data to reinforce that negative core belief. So there's 9 types of ants, and we're going to go through them. Again, the all is mind. Thoughts lead to emotions, which then lead to behaviors. And so dysfunctional assumptions in the form of ants lead to unhealthy emotions, including self-loathing, which then lead to behaviors that express that self-loathing. The first type of ant we're going to talk about is called all or nothing ant, a way of thinking. We also refer to it in psychiatry and in mental health as a black and white thinking. This one I hear a lot in the office. Nothing's working. I'm still depressed. I still have panic attacks. Nothing is working. And I love this ant. This is an easy ant to work with. If the person is willing to go back in time and review, they will find that actually things are working. When we have black and white ants, we just have to, with all the ants, we just have to step back, look at it in its totality, and explore the details. When clients are like, nothing's working, and then we go back and say, oh, really? Because a year ago, you were having panic attacks every day. You were cutting. You were suicidal all the time. And your hair was always in your face, and I could never see you, and you always had your face mask on, and your head was down, and you tight and everything, and you couldn't breathe, and your shoulders were up to your ears in my office. And now, masks off, hair's back, you smile every once in a while. You haven't had a panic attack in 6 months. You certainly haven't cut, and there's been no suicidal thoughts. But you do have some times when you feel down and you feel sad, or you have a traumatic memory surface, and so you may have an anxiety attack, but it's not a full-blown panic attack where you were in the corner before. Then you couldn't move and you couldn't breathe. Now you have some fluttering in your heart, you feel a little paralyzed, but you can manage the situation. So is it that nothing is working, or is it that actually things are working? That you have to look at the reality in its totality. So all or nothing thinking, that is an ant, an automatic negative thought. Always thinking is another automatic negative thought. I'm always going to have acne. It's never going to go away. Really? Yeah. And then that leads to emotions of, right, anxiety. Then that leads to behaviors of isolation. You don't want to be around people because you feel like you don't look your best. It also prevents you from taking risks or adventures because you're worried about how you're going to be interpreted, or that people aren't going to like you, or they're going to see you as grotesque because of your skin. But are you always going to have acne? No, that is an automatic negative thought feeding a negative core belief that wants to live, that I am not good enough. This belief has to exist that I am not good enough, and it's the acne that's proving it to me. And chances are there is a way to clear up the acne. I know. I had it till my late 30s, but I'm going to get another ant. We're going to go deeper on that one. The next ant is focusing on the negative. That's a pretty obvious one. So you're hanging out with your best friend at your favorite restaurant, your favorite day of the week, and you're eating your favorite food, and it's the most glorious favorite weather that you like. But you're over there, ugh, my friend is annoying, and this food, something they didn't do it right this time, and I don't know, the weather's gonna change. I don't like it, and my shoes don't fit right. Why do we focus on the negative? For the same reason, in the opposite side, the polarity of focusing on the negative, which is focusing on the positive, you've all met them. Hi, yeah, I'm so happy. My life is perfect. Yeah, we want to disagree. Okay, I don't really want to like to disagree, so I just gotta be smiling. There's no problems. There's never any problems. Ha, everything's just happy. Focusing on the positive and focusing on the negative are both a form of the same ant, just different ends of the polarity. Both of them, the root is the same. It's the fear of disappointment. It's the fear of coming back down. So the people who think positive just never want to come down. They're terrified of any kind of disappointment or pain in that way. And the people who focus on the negative are they don't want to even try to feel happy, because then they're like, when's the shoe going to drop and I got to come back down and feeling bad. So it's the same fear that generates that ant, so that things just don't work out for me. Maybe the negative core belief associated with that ant is things never work out for me. So am I just always going to put on a happy face, or I'm just never going to put on a happy face, and I don't have to worry about the disappointment. And I'm never disappointed. You're either lying to yourself, or you're both are lies. Just the opposite ends. This is how you choose to express it. Another ant is thinking with your feelings. This is a very, very tricky one, because we use the feeling word when we're not talking about emotions at all. And so we'll say things like, I feel like my skin is never going to clear up. Well, okay, so we've just confused thoughts and feelings, which have greatly limited our ability to explore that experience in its totality, because you're not feeling that you're always going to have acne. You're thinking that you're always going to have acne. And again, it's that thought that can lead to some really uncomfortable emotions like anxiety and sadness, depression, which then leads to really unhappy behaviors like isolation or limiting opportunities. You're not going to go for that job because they're not going to want to hire you because they don't want to look at your skin or your face. I know, I've been there. They're not going to want to date you because you don't look as good as that person over there because your skin isn't clear. And so you're confusing, and when you're confusing the thought with the emotion, you can't break it all down to see the reality of all the things that are happening to you and all the ways that your self-esteem is being limited, and then your actions in life are being limited. This is a very tricky ant. When we say, well, I feel like this is happening, or I feel like this isn't going to happen, really watch for that in your vocabulary, in your vernacular, and let that be a trigger to you that you have now in your consciousness and like mixed up two very important separate things. You're thinking that is going to happen or never going to happen, and then that's leading to the feelings, because both need to be explored separately. The thoughts need to be explored, so then you can explore the reality of the options, and the feelings need to be explored that those thoughts are creating, so you can know how it's affecting your actions. You can't get to the actions and understand how this thought is deeply affecting your actions until you separate the true feelings from this thought to the actions that it's creating. The reality is, I had acne until my late 30s, and I did feel like I was going to have acne forever until I thought about different causes. I I tried everything except, thank God, Accutane, because Accutane shreds your liver. I know a lot of people do it and they're fine with it. I'm glad I never did it. But I tried all the antibiotics and the creams and spent so much money on so many expensive things. And in the end, because I kept thinking, working in mental health, I learned about a disorder called pyrrole disorder, which I have a hard time getting rid of copper. I have a buildup of copper, which leads to a depletion. Sorry, the pyrrole disorder causes a depletion in zinc, which then causes me to hold on to copper. And one of the problems with that is acne. And another problem I had was dairy. It doesn't get along with me. But if I had just continued with the feeling and surrendered to the feeling, I would have never explored how deeply that acne affected my self-esteem. Luckily, I was able to do that through school and my profession, being a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And then later in my job as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, I learned about pyrrole disorder. I got on zinc. I started taking zinc. That helped a lot, not all the way, but then when I gave up dairy and my skin completely cleared up, wow. But that's a thought. That's a detail. That's within the solution. Oh, wait a minute. It's not just all hormones, teenager hormones, which I was told, oh, once you get through puberty, it'll go away. Oh, once you stop eating chocolate, it'll go away. No, I did all that. I tried all the stuff except dairy, because that was never on anybody's radar. But that's a thought. That's an option to you. And there's always options, but it's hard to get in touch with those options until we separate the emotions from it. Because if I feel like I'm always going to have acne, I feel it, and then I feel anxiety about it, I feel insecure about it, and I also feel there's no way out. I feel limited. Limited isn't a feeling, but I feel hopeless. It's not ever, so why bother looking for another solution? I've tried everything else. That hopelessness limits your options for continuing to look for a solution. The next ant is guilt beating. So in mental health, for me, I am never going to teach you to get rid of shoulds. I'm not going to tell you shoulds are bad. No, you should do your hygiene every day. You should brush your teeth. You should try to work and make an income so you can support yourself. You should try to be kind and compassionate to people. You should do those things. But when we live in the shoulds as dogma, now we're getting into guilt beating. Well, I should get all A's. Ugh. And then if I get a A-, it's the worst thing in the world, and I'm a terrible person, and my whole world's falling apart. I'm never going to get into the college that I want to get into, and I'm not good enough, and da-da-da, and see how that goes right back to the I'm not good enough, negative core belief. When the shoulds become dogma, when they become rigid, that's when we have a problem. Instead of, well, I should get an A because I'm good at this and I studied hard for it, and I get an A, cool. But when I should get an A all the time and I get a B, heaven forbid a C, because for that particular semester, my dog died, and it was really hard because it was my best friend, and I was really just distraught, and trauma limits your memory, kind of shuts down your memory a little bit, or another stressful situation happened, and so I didn't get all A's. That automatic negative thought of like, I should, is going to lead you back to some kind of negative core belief of I am not good enough. See, I'm not good enough because I didn't get an A. Or nobody's going to love me because I didn't get an A. And Harvard's not going to love me because I didn't get an A. And so that dogmatic attachment to the shoulds is where that's how the ant comes into play. And it affects your ability to feel healthy, empowering emotions and take healthy, empowering steps. So when you get a B, you're not off in the corner of your bedroom crying and having a panic attack and saying, giving up on school altogether. You're going out with your friends and saying, well, yeah, I didn't get an A on that test, but I'll catch up, or I'll do better next time, or it's okay. And right now I'm just going to unwind. I'm going to let some stress out and go enjoy myself and be okay that I got whatever grade I got, and I'm going to learn from it. And that's mistakes. That's not a mistake, but learning from it is how we grow. It's very important to make mistakes. It's very important to fail, because that is how we grow and learn. That's the best way how we grow and learn. The next ant is labeling. Labeling is an ant that creates so much separation between people, between situations. And labeling at its core, as an ant, the most damage that comes from labeling is that it completely shuts down your critical thinking skills. So when we're on the journey to mental health is a dedication to reality at all costs, the real reality. And so if we're labeling, that person's this, or this job sucks, then we have just taken the totality of an experience and diminished it to a 2 to 4 word sentence. We have shut down all assessment of the totality of the experience. We are not assessing the fullness of what is happening or what has happened, and there is no way we can address the situation with a fully empowered, intelligent assessment. And so within the trivium, we learn, grammar, logic, rhetoric. A modern way of saying that is input, processing, output. It's how you take in information, how you process information, and how you put out your action based off of the information you have. That's critical thinking. Critical thinking is necessary for mental health. When we start limiting, when we start shutting down how we're describing things, we start shutting down and we label things to like some kind of lowest common denominator, which isn't even based in reality. We've eliminated all the details. We've eliminated our ability to critical think about what's happening, and we've pigeonholed ourselves into an automatic negative thought that's definitely reinforcing some kind of negative core belief that I am unlovable, or I'm not good enough. This job sucks. I'm not good enough to get another job. And this job sucks. And then we're back to hopelessness, and there's no way we're going to come up with a solution. We've shut down everything. Now, the last 3 are what we call red ants. Red ants. And they're the really, really dangerous ones. They can really make a big impact, and we all do them. The first one is fortune telling or fantasizing. So we know a couple of things about a situation, and then we just create a whole story around those 3 details. And it's just going to be the worst thing ever, and all these terrible things are going to happen, and the whole world's going to die, and everything's going to fall apart, and it's all going to hell in a handbasket. And now I'm anxious, and I don't feel safe, and I've just reinforced that negative core belief because I've told myself a whole story. I am not good enough. This boy doesn't like me. He hasn't called me since yesterday, and all these details, and I saw him on social media, and he said something over there, and he's just cheating on me now. Now I'm getting cheated on. Yeah, that's what's happening. No, you're telling yourself a story. I don't know about this from experience at all. I have never experienced it. We have fantasized ourselves right into a whole panic attack or depression or, a whole rage episode, maybe even, who knows, but we've done it. We made that story up in our head, and it created a whole lot of emotions, which led to some actions that we probably regret. But hopefully we can come back and say we're sorry and own our deals. But that's fortune telling. The other red ant is mind reading. One of my favorite examples of mind reading of current events is in the last 9 months, I have diagnosed more social phobia in the teenage population, as I mostly see kids and teens, with social phobia than I have in the since 2011 when I started practicing as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Social phobia is becoming rampant. And these poor teenagers, a lot of them are in middle school, which middle school is hell. You couldn't pay me to go back to middle school. A lot of high schoolers too, I think thanks to all the isolation from COVID. But they just, everywhere they go, whether they're in school or in the mall or at a restaurant, anyone looks at them and they go into a whole thing in their mind about how that person is judging them and they're not good enough, and that they are reading that person's mind. That person makes just the slightest eye contact with them, and all of a sudden that person is judging them and thinking bad things about them and about how awkward they are, or how poorly dressed they are, or all these terrible things. They are reading their mind, and their mind, they are being judged in that other person's mind. And I love watching my clients' faces when I point out to them what's happening these days. The reality of what's happening these days is that no one is judging anyone, because most people, especially people your age, are walking around worrying and reading everybody else's mind that they're being judged. So we've got this whole generation of teenagers walking around reading other people's minds, worrying that they're being judged when nobody's judging them, because everybody else is worried that they're being judged by you. So it's this very kind of comical situation going on from this mind reading. Nobody's judging anybody because everybody's walking around worrying that they're being judged by the other person. Nobody's judging you. Everyone's walking around feeling quite insecure. So please, when you notice that ant pop up, when you were reading someone's mind and think you know what they're thinking, they've got to be thinking that. Just hold the phone. Whoa, I'm reading their mind. I have no idea what they're thinking. I know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I might not be good enough. And that's why I'm worried that they might be reading my mind. So that's a negative core belief that belongs to me. And that leads me to the last ant. Blaming other people. Hopefully, if you are seeing a mental health professional, you are learning that you can never change another person. You can't do it. You can only change your reaction to the person. You are 100% in charge of your reaction to the other person. The other person does not make you feel happy. The other person does not make you feel angry. The other person didn't make you mad. The other person didn't make you feel anxious. I mean, unless they're legitimately beating you up or they are abusing you. I mean, we're not, right? So we're not doing all or nothing thinking here. But in the general day-to-day, nobody makes you mad. Nobody makes you sad. You choose that reaction based off of your negative core beliefs, the automatic negative thoughts at play, and how in whatever ways that your reality is being limited, and whatever trauma-based glasses that you're looking through. And so that blaming, it's all your fault, you made me angry, you did this, and now I'm sad. You are reacting to that experience. We've all had those days where one day we've had enough rest, we've eaten nutritious food, we feel good, and someone close to us does a thing, and we're just like, that's okay, ha ha ha, that's even kind of funny, meow meow meow. And then we have a day where we haven't slept well, we're not eating well, maybe too much sugar, whatever, and a lot of stress is happening with a lot of things coming at us, and that person does the same exact thing, and it's like, get that out of my face. I cannot deal with you. You are making me mad. You just need to stop. We're blaming them for our internal state, something that's going on within us. That's blame. That's an ant. No one makes you feel anything. You choose your thought. You choose your emotion. You choose that reaction based off of a bunch of things going on. And so going back and being like, ooh, how did I end up choosing that in that moment? Well, you didn't sleep too good. You had a lot of things going on that day. Probably shouldn't have eaten a whole box of Oreos. And then, your blood sugar is probably all whacked out. So those are the 9 primary ants. I hope that you found that to be helpful. I hope that as you go through your mental health journey, you can start to notice if any of those are active, and then to help take a step back and reassess the totality of the experience. Use that critical thinking to assess the totality of the reality, so the ants aren't limiting your reality to just simply reinforce that negative core belief to make it real. We're trying to dissolve that negative core belief. We're trying to look at the reality of everything that's going on so we can unwind that negative core belief so that you can feel more happy on the day-to-day, so you can choose happiness, so you can choose how you're interacting with the information that's coming at you, the thoughts. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.